this week I started to unwrap all of the decorations that I put out, and I found this. This was given to me by my mother-in-law in 1988, and it brings back a story because she's in hospice and we adore her, and it just brings back a story of her and my daughter, who was 2 at the time. On Christmas morning, we had flown out to North Carolina because we wanted Annie and her grandmother to celebrate their birthdays together. They were both born on Christmas. So she was 2, her hair was down to here, full of curls, and she had 3 dresses ready for the occasion, all red. And she was so excited. In North Carolina, David's family are Moravians. This is the Moravian star, which I'm going to tell you the story about. In Moravian tradition, there is a love feast. And a love feast is a communion, a lot like taking communion, only they do it with a sweet bread, a cup of milk coffee, and a beeswax candle. So let me take you to the love feast, Annie's first. Now Annie is a gregarious child, never wants to sit still, and she's in her beautiful, beautiful red dress, flouncing around, feeling quite pretty. And so as we get over to the love feast, which is at midnight on Christmas Eve, she walks into the Moravian church, and it is adorned with evergreens, beeswax candles, and a gigantic Moravian star in the front. Well, she has never met a stranger, and so she is talking to everybody, making everyone her friend. Now, she is probably one of 2 children who are that age. So as the Moravian love feast begins, Annie is enamored. She watches every person's move. She watches it as they bring in their white apron and hat the love feast buns down the aisle and pass them out. She's thinking this is pretty cool. You get to eat in church. Because the church we attended, they didn't get to eat. Then they come and they bring the coffee. And because her grandparents lived next door to the Moravian church, they had bought her a special little mug. So she had her own little 2-year-old mug. So as they begin to pass this out, and they pass out the candles, and the candles represent Christ's purity because it's made from real beeswax, which is the most pure wax you can buy. She gets her little candle, and no, she didn't get to light it, but she gets her little candle and she's watching. Well, there's a point in the love feast that I'm going to share with you in a little bit, and she gets her candle and she does something that firemen would hate. She goes out and quietly sits for the final part of the love feast in the middle of the aisle with her candle, pretending it's lit. At this point, a child sings a precious song. And I will share that song with you in a minute, but let me take you to Christmas morning when her grandma Betty shared with her the story of the Moravian star. I got up as usual, and Annie was an early riser, so she was up at 6. And I went down to find Annie drinking out of her little mug, her little milk coffee that her grandmother had made. And her grandmother was presenting her with 2 gifts. She didn't need us there because they were a gift from the heart. And it wasn't something she wanted to happen during the Christmas festivities. She was giving Annie her first Moravian star. This is a Moravian star handmade by her uncle. He's made these for years and has sold them, and we have hundreds of these in our house to celebrate the Moravian holiday. The Moravian star started in 1850 when a very industrious German professor at the Moravian Boys' School decided to be creative for a geometry lesson. This was the lesson, to create a star. This star was so popular amongst the Moravian parents that this church, the church school, when they needed to make money, began to sell these. That was when the Moravian church adopted this as their Advent star. This was happening in Hernut, let's try to say it, in Hernut, Germany, which is now Saxony. And at that time period, Hernut meant Lord's protection. This was now dubbed as the Lord's protection. This particular Moravian star, which you can find in a variety of colors and sizes, the tradition is 26 points, but 144 is what most churches have because they're huge. These are taken by missionaries all over the world, and at Christmas all over Europe you will find these Moravian stars. Well, Annie took this into her hand, and her grandmother began to say, Annie, do you know what this star means? And Annie's like, it's a gift. She's 2. She wasn't sure what Grandma meant. So she even got to hold it. Now it's very sharp, but she got to hold it in her hand, and she says, this is a star of Christ. This represents the Bethlehem star when baby Jesus was born. And this star says that Christ is the morning star. It's the Moravian star, the Lord's protection star, but it is the morning star. It represents Christ. Well, as the story went on, she answered some questions about the beeswax candle, and Annie got to keep it. And of course, I don't know how many of you that have a very gregarious child, but this original candle has some bite marks in it because you have to taste it. So her original candle has bite marks. But the other present that she gave her was a music box. This is hand petty pointed. And she began to talk about where the placement of the star would have been in the manger and how Jesus would have felt about having. And of course, in Annie's eyes, being 2, the star in the sky is the Moravian star. It looks just like the star that her grandma gave her. And her grandma was sitting there. And just to let you know, at this point, they didn't know I was listening. This was a private conversation at 5 in the morning between a grandmother and her granddaughter, her first granddaughter. And they were sharing the story, and she began to wind this up. And Annie was enamored. The look on her face, this was God's song to her. This was God singing to her in music. It was one of the first times my daughter had really fallen in love with music. Later, she played the flute all the way through college. But this was the inspiration, because this was God's song to her. Moravian Star is a song sung, Morning Star is a song sung at the very end of the love feast. It's always done by a child. And the child will then sing, and the people will respond. And I'm going to be the child today as representing my daughter, and we're going to sing this together, a few stanzas. One of the things that Christ wants us to know is that he is the bright star, and he has come to give us hope and a promise and a fulfillment. The Moravians, in their love feast, this is their purpose. They want strangers, homeless, they want everyone coming and receiving a communal brethren moment to know how much Christ loved them. Because from the very first, when the Moravians gathered, it was all about unity and brethren. And this is a night they invite anyone in the neighborhood, the Baptists, the Lutherans, it doesn't matter what denomination, you get to be a part of the love feast.
You know, we ran out, so I think...
Can you guys share the song?
If we could share, you got somebody to share with? You got somebody to share with? This table has, I don't think you have any, or yeah, there's 2 right here. How about you all? Do you have any? Okay, you have to share, Anna's giving you another one. You okay? Who needs one? All right, I'll share. I'll read.
Are we ready? Because of the purity of it, I was going to play a recording by Pudding Song that is beautiful with a child singing. But I really believe that the Lord just wants us to sing. And Andrea is my singing buddy. If I wanted to stay in tune, she'd be up here. But we agreed, you're going to get to have me because I'm a worshiper. I just don't stay in tune. So just have fun with it. Oh, I need a copy of it. I don't have it fully memorized. Sorry. You have one? Okay. So we're going to kind of use the fun music box. And this music box has been in our family since Annie was 2 and she's 26. All right. You ready? Oh, that's a good one. Okay. One other thing I'm going to tell you is we're going to sing it all together, but the very first one I'm going to sing alone, just so you guys get the hang of the tune, and then we'll sing the rest of them together. Does that make sense? That way it'll make it easier for you. You can kind of see. It's a very simple tune. All right. Let's wind up this precious thing. Morning Star. Morning Star. You are really fast. Okay. We're just going to wing it. I'm not that fast. Morning star, oh cheering sight, ere thou cam'st, how dark earth's night. Jesus mine, in me shine, In me shine, Jesus mine. Fill my heart with light divine. You guys ready? Let's do it. Morning star, thy glory bright, far excels the sun's clear light. Jesus be constantly, constantly, Jesus be more than thousands to me. Thy glad beams, thou morning star, cheer the nations near and far. Thee we own, Lord. See. Excellent. Great Savior, God's dear Son. More, I know. My soul's true light. Tarry not, dispel my night. Jesus mine, in me shine, in me shine. Jesus mine, fill my heart with light divine. And that's my blessing to you. May he fill your heart with lights divine.